Imagine entering a room and no one knows you. You don't say a word, and no one no talk unto. You feel their gaze shift toward you. Not because you're famous, not because you look intimidating, but because your presence speaks for itself. This is not magic. This is not manipulation. It's something much deeper. The silent power that the Stoics understood, that Machiavelli applied, that Nietzsche described, and that Jung saw as key to authentic existence. In today's video, you won't learn how to speak to earn respect. You'll learn how to awaken it with your mere presence, without words, without justifications, without needing approval. Silence is not emptiness, it's a structure of power. Silence frightens those who feel insecure, but for self-aware people, it's a tool. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote, "He who speaks too much reveals his weaknesses, and those who can remain silent give others space to make mistakes." It's like chess. The best move is often the one you don't make right away. You let your opponent expose themselves. Silence is not a lack of reaction. It's a form of reaction that forces the other side to self-reflect, to wonder, did I perhaps overstep? Justifying is asking for permission. Every time you explain yourself, you communicate one thing: I'm not sure if I have the right to do this. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that truly free people don't need to justify themselves before the world, because their values are non-negotiable. If your decision aligns with your value system, stay silent. The world doesn't need to agree with you. Respect is not born from compromises. It is born from consistency and the courage to take responsibility for your choices, even when they are uncomfortable. Posture speaks louder than arguments. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, that part of our psyche we suppress by pretending to be someone we are not. But when you integrate your shadow, you no longer fear conflict, rejection, or judgment. You become whole. And then you no longer need to play a role. You don't need to defend yourself, because there's nothing to defend. Your way of sitting, eye contact, speaking pace, these are more telling than 5 minutes of wise arguments. People sense truth where there's no need to convince. Authenticity has a scent. It is felt beneath the surface. When you don't react, you take their weapon away. The greatest paradox is that sometimes, lack of reaction is the most destructive, especially for those trying to provoke you. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, believed that emotions are a choice, not an automatic reaction. When someone insults you, it's not the insult that touches you, it's you who decides whether to let it matter. If you don't justify yourself, don't get outraged, don't try to explain. It's like saying, your opinion has no power to define me. And suddenly, the opponent is left alone with my proposition to you bend the without purpose, without influence. Your presence must have weight, but for all of this to work, you must have something within you. It's not enough to stay silent. It's not enough to star. Your silence must have a foundation. It's like water and glass. An empty glass doesn't impress, but when filled, it becomes heavier, more stable, more present. Your foundation is values, boundaries, experience, self-awareness. If you have internal order, you don't need external validation. As Sun Tzu wrote, the best battle is the one that doesn't need to be fought. But to avoid it, you must be ready to fight. Your presence should say, I don't seek conflict, but I won't back down if necessary. Respect begins with silence. You don't earn respect by what you say. You earn it by what you don't need to say. By not asking for permission to be yourself. By not justifying decisions that are obvious to you. By not fighting for your place, because you already know it's yours. People sense who carries within them silence that doesn't run from conflict. Silence that doesn't mean weakness, but inner order. Let your silence speak louder than 1,000 words. Because in a world full of noise, the one who can consciously remain silent rules the space. But what happens when people start testing our boundaries? That's when true strength reveals itself. Not through anger, but through stillness. People expect a reaction. They expect you to justify, apologize, raise your voice. But when you respond with silence, you change the rules of the game. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Your inner world is a fortress, untouchable, unless you open it. That's why people who don't react emotionally to provocations their calmness robs others of control. That's what makes them dangerous, but not in an aggressive way, only in a strategic way. Rule 5, show that you have somewhere to go, always. The greatest respect is born when people know you don't need them. Not emotionally, not socially, and not financially. As Blaise Pascal wrote, all the miseries of mankind come from the fact that man cannot sit quietly in a room alone. The person who can be alone holds power over those who always need to be the center. People instinctively respect those who are not attached to the presence of others, because they cannot be blackmailed with loneliness. They cannot be manipulated by the fear of rejection, and that's why they are unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. Rule 6, don't try to be liked, try to be respected. When your goal is to be liked, you give up power. You yield. You relinquish your boundaries. And people sense that. But when willing to be disliked to stay true to yourself, then you gain something more than sympathy. You gain admiration. As Seneca wrote, "He who desires to be always liked cannot be always just." Being liked is emotional dependence on acceptance. Respect, however, is born from consistency, from your words and actions being aligned, even when they are unpopular. Rule 7. Don't fear conflict. Fear compromises with yourself. Many people avoid conflict, thinking it's a sign of maturity. But sometimes avoiding conflict is simply fear disguised as virtue, fear of being rejected by others. As Carl Jung wrote, "What you resist persists. What you accept, you transform." It's not about provoking conflict, but not fearing it when it's inevitable. Courage to confront, without drama, earns respect. It shows that your values outweigh comfort. Rule 7. Learn the art of the cool gaze. People who cannot distance themselves easily become victims of their own impulses. They react impulsively, emotionally, unpredictably, and then they regret it. The art of emotional distance. It's not coldness of the heart, it's coldness of the mind. You can feel, but you don't have to act on those emotions. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not good for the swarm, it is not good for the bee." Everything you do resonates. Your posture, your silence, your reaction or lack thereof. These are messages. When people feel that your reaction is not automatic but thoughtful, they begin to take you more seriously. Rule 9. Never give everything away at once. Have you noticed that people respect those who leave something for themselves? It's not about manipulation. It's about boundaries. It's about subtlety. It's about not being a book that anyone can open on any page. You are a mystery. And that makes you interesting. As Nietzsche wrote, "What is given for free has no value." Respect often arises not from what you say, but from what you keep for yourself. People respect those who are not available at a moment's notice, those who don't say everything, those who are not easily figured out. Rule 9. Instead of seeking recognition, become someone who cannot be ignored. You don't have to shout to be noticed. You don't have to explain to be understood. And you don't have to smile to be respected. All you need is to be yourself, in an unyielding, stable, present version. When others get lost, you stand firm. When others explain themselves, you remain silent. When others react, you analyze. Then you don't just earn respect, you earn something more: authority. Reflective tone, with a deep ending. Respect is not something you ask for, it's something you emanate. It flows from your presence, decisions, boundaries, from how you stand in the world, not how you try to fit into.
You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to be aggressive to be taken seriously. You don't need to be perfect to be authentic. All you need is to be still, silent, but impossible to overlook. Because when you truly know your worth, the world starts recognizing it too. In a culture that prizes constant talking, silence becomes the weapon of the self-assured. Just look at masters of diplomacy or spiritual leaders. They don't talk much, but when they do, every word carries weight. That's because they've learned one of the most overlooked arts, the art of silence. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "We should not be too quickly understood." Ironically, he wasn't advocating being unclear, but that revealing yourself too quickly makes others stop appreciating you. Mystery, just like unspoken words, is the space where respect is born. If you are fully exposed, linguistically, emotionally, in life, you leave others with nothing to discover, and what is fully discovered stops being fascinating. That's why those who say little, but with substance, earn respect. Their presence doesn't ask for you to like them, it demands that you notice them. And here, it's worth recalling the teachings of Confucius, who believed that respect is not born from dominance, but from self-discipline. You don't need to control others to be an authority. All you need is to control yourself. Your consistency, rituals, stillness, and manner of presence are like an echo that carries farther than any shout. But isn't this a lonely path? Don't we risk building a wall between ourselves and the world? Yes and no. As Albert Camus wrote, loneliness is the price of freedom. But that doesn't mean you should isolate yourself. On the contrary, it's about knowing how to be with others without losing yourself, how to listen without being overwhelmed, how to be present without needing to shine. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, wrote, "The highest form of strategy is to subdue the enemy without fighting." And that's exactly what you do when you don't need to explain yourself, when your silence speaks louder than others' arguments, when your gaze, gestures, calmness, and posture say, "I know my worth," and that's enough. In today's world, where many shout to be heard, the greatest form of courage is to speak only when necessary, and then to speak emphatically.
When you speak, don't say everything. Imagine sitting across from someone who knows much more than you, but doesn't brag about it. They don't need to. They don't use their knowledge to dominate. Instead, they give you space. They ask questions. They listen. They don't answer everything. They don't win the argument. They let you come to your own conclusions. That's the highest level of authority, not needing to dominate, prove, or explain. It's a paradox. The less you try to be important, the more important you become. People feel it, without words. Here it's worth returning to Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Do not say everything you think, but always say what is necessary." What builds true respect is not speeches, but silent presence. Not arguments, but consistency between words and deeds. Not that you speak wisely, but that you live wisely. The shadow, boundaries, and presence. Carl Jung wrote that to be a truly influential person, you must integrate your darkness, your shadow. It's not about being nice. It's about knowing your boundaries and not being afraid to show them. Respect is not born from being pleasant. It's born from people sensing that you have boundaries, and that they can't break through them. You don't need to shout, "I won't allow it." All it takes is for your posture to show that this is not an option. Your eyes, your body, your way of holding yourself in space. These are things that communicate more than any words. Your presence can be violence, or it can be protection. It can awaken fear, or respect. What determines this is not the tone of your voice, but who you are in silence. Silent respect. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't have to be loud. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. In a world full of noise, your silence will become your signature, your posture, your manifesto, your life, your answer. Because those who respect themselves teach the world how to treat them. You see, the greatest irony of respect is that it's not a goal, it's a byproduct. When you try to earn it, it runs away. But when you focus on your path, game forces to be defined by the monistic teachings. Each appears on its own, like a shadow behind someone walking with conviction. Look at the masters of martial arts. They don't shout, they don't struggle, they don't demonstrate aggression. Their greatest strength is calmness. Why? Because a person who knows their strength doesn't need to prove it. Philosophers have understood this principle for a long time. Lao Tzu's Taoism said, "He who knows himself is enlightened. He who masters himself is powerful." True strength is self-control. It's the ability not to yield to provocation, not out of the need to escape, but out of self-confidence. And this is the secret to charisma. It's not about being liked, it's about being real. For your presence to resonate with something authentic, unwavering, people can feel when you don't need to prove anything. That's when they start to listen to you. Because respect is not an emotion, it's a decision, made by others, based on how seriously you take yourself. So how do you gain respect? Not through shouting, not through control, not through drama, but through presence, through consistency, through an inner compass that you don't sell for cheap recognition. Every moment when you stand still in the fire of chaos brings you closer to this strength. Every moment when you don't need to explain yourself, when your actions speak louder than words, builds your legend. Start your day not asking how to impress. Start your day by asking, will what I do today make me more authentic? Because authenticity has gravity, and people respect what has weight. And in this world full of noise, pretense, and artificial confidence, the silence of an authentic person rings the loudest. Unpredictability is another quiet ally of respect. If people can predict every move, every reaction, every word, you stop arousing curiosity. And over time, where curiosity disappears, admiration does too. It's about showing that your psyche is not a straight line, but a complex structure that cannot be reduced to a pattern. Let's look at this from Jung's perspective. According to him, the most powerful people are those who have integrated their shadow side, those impulses and instincts that we usually repress. When you are only good, you are predictable. But when your goodness doesn't come from helplessness but from choice, and it's clear that you also carry darkness within you, which you can control, that's when people begin to wonder. They start calculating how much you can really do, considering you choose to be calm even when you don't have to. Silence becomes your weapon, and unpredictability your shield. It's also worth mentioning the power of verbal minimalism. Have you noticed that people who say little often seem wiser? Not because they actually know more, but because every word they say carries weight. They don't get distracted by chatter. They don't dilute their presence with banalities. When they finally say something, everyone listens. Silence, when others speak, is a subtle act of dominance. You don't need to interrupt. All you need is to be present, aware, and assess. Their words flow, your gaze weighs them. And what is weighed gains value. Your silence turns their words into questions. Let's conclude with a message that encapsulates the entire strength of this philosophy. True respect doesn't mean people fear you, nor that you have to force it. It means that your presence changes the atmosphere. Your silence speaks louder than their screams. Your gaze carries more meaning than their entire speeches. Your emotions, trapped in the steel grip of self-awareness, give you an authority that can't be staged. If you feel the world is not listening to you, start speaking less, start demanding more from yourself, and let your silence be an act of presence, not absence. Respect doesn't have to be earned. Sometimes all it takes is to stop begging for it, and it will come on its own. Imagine someone who never explains themselves, never asks for attention. And yet, when someone provokes you, and you respond with calm, not withdrawal but silence filled with meaning, you disarm them. Your lack of reaction forces others to confront themselves but not you. What hurts is not your words but their own reflection in you, because the person who doesn't need to prove anything becomes a mirror, and people don't always like what they see in it. That's why some will test you, they'll try to force you to explain yourself. But remember, the one who explains themselves gives away their power. The one who remains silent keeps it. This approach doesn't mean pride or arrogance, it's philosophical discipline. It's the decision to be present, but not available at every demand. Like a monastery in the mountains, you can reach it, but you won't break into it with shouting. According to Laozi's principle, he who knows does not speak, he who speaks does not know. The more you explain, the more you reveal that you're not sure what you're doing. But the less you explain, the more others feel that you know something they don't understand, and that evokes respect, and sometimes fear. In reality, authority is born in silence. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to boast to be appreciated. You don't need to explain yourself to be understood, because understanding comes to those who have learned to understand themselves. And this is where true transformation begins. The moment you stop asking, "Do they respect me?" and start asking, "Do I respect myself?" Because every act of self-respect, every choice that doesn't need justification, carves in you a strength that no one can take away from you. And it's not about being cold or indifferent, it's about being unshaken. For your boundaries to be built from something more than anger or pride, from a deep understanding of your own worth. You don't need to look down on others to have authority. You just need to stop looking up at them pleadingly. So when someone asks, "Why are you doing this?" you can answer with just a look. Not with disdain, but with a silence that says, "Because I chose this path, and that's enough." You don't need to say more. Sometimes the greatest respect is born when others notice there's nothing to latch onto, because you are consistent with yourself, and then they start watching you. Not like someone chasing approval, but like someone who has already found it in themselves. Let this film be a reminder. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Respect is not born in the noise of explanations, but in the silence that needs no words. Instead of explaining yourself, be yourself. Instead of trying to gain approval, live in a way that you don't contradict yourself. Because the greatest strength is not in words, it's in what you no longer need to say.